from Wingate University and WUTV. This is Wingate Today.
Coming up, attracting attention through works of art. Making history in the pool. Women's swim team finishes second in the nation. But first, looking for a leader. Hello and welcome to Wingate Today. I'm Jeff Atkinson. A national search is underway for a provost to serve at Wingate University. It'll be the school's first provost in nearly 2 decades. The new position will oversee undergraduate, graduate, and professional programs. The provost will act as the chief academic officer. Currently, Martha Asti, senior vice president for academic affairs, oversees undergrad programs, and Bob Supernall, dean of the School of Pharmacy, is vice president for graduate and professional programs. WU held a public forum earlier this year to get input about what attributes Wingate employees would like to see in a provost. Caroline Whitson with Academic Search, the company helping recruit, says there will be a lot of interest in this job.
Clearly, the thing that's going to attract people is the fact that Wingate is in very good condition. This has been a rough time for independent colleges, and Wingate has done well and has managed to thrive. It has now become, I don't want to say a victim of its own success, but it has come to the point that it's grown so much that it really needs a dynamic academic leader who can pull together all the various parts that make it a university.
So far, more than 40 people have applied. There's no strict timeline for the position to be filled. However, the university is hoping to bring finalists to campus sometime late spring. Wingate has had 2 provosts in its history, Larry Ziegler, who passed away in March, and Bill Christie. Each held the title while serving the school in the 1990s. The university handed out a half a dozen major awards, recognized 70 employees for their years of service, and honored 6 retirees at the Employee Service Awards banquet in February. Retiring in May are Larry Coleman, Cindy Jordan, Judy Davis, Linda Stidge Larson, Sue Pauley, and Polly Bostic, seen here with Wingate University President Rhett Brown. The Order of the Seal, presented to the employee with 30 years experience, was given to Cindy Nance. The president also handed out gifts to employees celebrating employment anniversaries, 5, 10, 15 years, and so on. As a group this year, they represent 790 years of service to Wingate University. He's been featured on this program before. Now Ben Long, prominent North Carolina artist, and his 10 by 7 foot fresco have grabbed the attention of another TV program. North Carolina Weekend, produced by UNC-TV, came to Wingate to do a story about Long's latest work that's displayed in the Henson Art Museum. Long, a Statesville native, is one of a few artists to paint frescoes, an ancient art form which bonds paint to wet lime plaster. North Carolina Weekend profiles events and attractions around the state to help viewers make the most of their weekends.
The great thing about North Carolina Weekend is that we are able to showcase so many different venues, so many different places that you can go and see, and even if you can't make the trip there, you can see it visually.
The producers heard about the fresco from a woman who visited the Henson Art Museum. The segment on North Carolina Weekend is scheduled to air this spring on UNC-TV affiliated stations across the state. From one TV show to the next, this one a popular hit on Netflix. Orange is the New Black is based on the best-selling book by Piper Kerman. It's about the 13 months she spent in a federal prison. Piper Kerman visited campus, and Kristen Johnson caught up with her. A lot of fanfare surrounding this visit.
That's right, Jeff. The excitement of seeing and meeting Kerman seemingly on the same level as if an actor from the show was in the room. And while she obviously acknowledges the success of Orange is the New Black, Kerman's reason for speaking at events like this takes on a more serious undertone.
Piper Kerman was not much older than these students when she made a decision that would change the course of her life. At 24, she smuggled drug money across international borders. More than a decade later, that choice landed her in federal prison.
I was on my way to join the biggest prison population in the world, by far. We have 5% of the world's population here in the United States, but we account for 25% of the world's prisoners. And actually, when it comes to women, 1 out of every 3 women in prison in the world is incarcerated here in the United States.
During her nearly year-long stay in prison, Kerman would leave transformed, learning much more about the justice system and resolving to reform it.
I hoped that by writing about the things that I experienced and the things that I witnessed, that someone would come away from the book with a different idea about who is imprisoned in this country. We don't always think of women first, for example.
Not only did people read the book, but it also inspired a television series of the same name.
Look at you, Blondie. What'd you do?
Aren't you not supposed to ask that question?
I read that you're not supposed to ask that.
You read that? Well, you studied for prison?
The two mediums gave Kerman a bigger platform to discuss justice reform and shed light on issues surrounding prison populations, including race, socioeconomic factors, substance abuse, and mental illness.
I think it's important for them to understand, first and foremost, that we have the biggest prison population in the world, and that the United States has chosen to put more of its citizens in prison than any society in human history. That's a really significant decision, and young people are going to have a lot of influence over whether we continue down this path or whether we maybe start making better choices with our legal system.
Kerman tells students to use their time in college wisely, and going forward, make sure institutions like this are available to everyone.
We've come really far in this country when it comes to equity and equality. But the criminal justice system has not kept up with the progress that we've made, and it's time for it to catch up.
Season 4 of Orange is the New Black is set to release on Netflix in June, but no spoiler alerts from Kerman herself. She has been sworn to secrecy. As for what she hopes students take away from her talk, that the choices they make in this world have a big impact on people and their decisions are important. Jeff?
So true. Thanks, Kristen. The Wingate University Singers took their talent on the road, performing their annual winter tour in cities across North Carolina and Tennessee. One of the stops was in Henderson County, where Wingate has a campus. The setting, Immaculate Conception Church in downtown Hendersonville. This concert came on the heels of a major performance at the American Choral Directors Association convention in Chattanooga. Wingate was one of 4 choirs in the 11-state Southern Division invited to be featured this year. At the Hendersonville concert, a love offering was taken up to benefit the free clinics of Hendersonville. Wingate University Hendersonville partners with the nonprofit organization, which provides health care services to low-income and people without medical insurance. You can see more of the concert in a Wingate Presents special here on WUTV, right after Wingate Today. Here's a sound you might not have heard before. 11 people playing a modified grand piano at the same time. Not the normal setup for such a musical instrument, which is called a bowed piano, referring to the nylon fishing lines that make the unusual sound. The technique was invented by an American composer in the 1970s. The group, called Ensemble 243, along with musical director David Brooks, performed a piece called NC, made popular at events called happenings, where musicians would rotate in and out, developing the piece over several hours. The sound is unlike most in that there are no melodies, and each player moves through the piece at a different speed. A Wingate senior majoring in history is on her way to one of the most exclusive master's programs in the country. She's from Ukraine, became a U.S. citizen just within the last year, and hopes to create a better world through diplomacy. Her name is Nellie Dimov, and Chuck Gordon has her story.
Nellie Dimov doesn't exactly give off the vibe of a typical college student.
But I recall, even before she was in class, seeing her walk across campus and always wondering, what's her story?
That story involves post-Soviet Ukraine, the Amish country, and the poise and smarts of a diplomat. But before we get to that, we need to explore the next chapter in the life of Wingate senior Nellie Dimov. This fall, Dimov enters the master's program at the prestigious Patterson School of Diplomacy and International Commerce at the University of Kentucky on a full ride. Only 35 to 40 students get admitted each year.
I was really, really excited, of course, because I had been crossing my fingers just to get into Patterson, but I did not even dare dream of a scholarship or anything like that.
Dimov will bring a unique perspective to Patterson, one of the top schools in the country for future foreign diplomats.
When we think about diplomacy and what happens if it fails, we generally have to think about it in hypothetical terms. If A happens, then X will happen, or whatever. And people try to imagine what it's going to be like. But I think for me, I don't really have to imagine it because I know, because I was there.
Dimov spent the first 5 years of her life in the Russian-speaking portion of Ukraine. This was after the fall of the Berlin Wall, which led to impoverished conditions in the region.
And people went to bed having financial security, and they woke up paupers. They woke up with nothing. And how do you create a life out of nothing? Where do you go? Your money's not worth anything.
Her family had little.
There were shortages everywhere, even food shortages, where you couldn't go into a store and take it for granted that you could pick up some sour cream or mayonnaise or butter or whatever. It's just we had those things for holidays, but you couldn't guarantee that you'd go in there any day and be able to find those things.
A lack of money eventually drove her parents to leave for the United States.
When we left the country, both of my parents, and to this day, of course, they've never gotten it and they never will, but when we were leaving, both of my parents were still waiting for 6 months worth of paychecks. Well, how do you live for half a year when no money's coming in?
They immigrated to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the Amish country, where she spent the next 8 years before moving to Union County. Ultimately, she found her way to Wingate, where she's excelled as a history student.
Got the impression it wasn't just a class she was taking. She was interested in the subject. She was interested in discussing with other students what they had learned, etc., which is, you know, a faculty member's dream.
Dimov's dreams include improving international relations as a member of the Foreign Service. Her diverse background will help.
You know, because of my background, I've been pretty good at going from one culture to another, adjusting to people, adjusting to people's mentalities, because that's a huge part of your culture also.
Well, her desire is to be in the diplomatic corps, and I can see her, she as a diplomat.
For Wingate Today, I'm Chuck Gordon.
The idea for the Patterson School of Diplomacy and International Commerce came out of the Spanish-American War in 1898. University of Kentucky's first president, James Kennedy Patterson, thought it was necessary to establish a school that would prepare young men and women for careers in the diplomatic corps. France's ambassador to the U.S., Zara Arud, in Charlotte recently to meet with local business leaders. Some Wingate students also got the chance to meet and talk with the ambassador. One of the students, Anthony Galdin, is from France, from Orléans. He's a member of the Wingate cross-country team. The students say they appreciated the time they were able to spend at the event, sponsored by the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. It'll be a memory of their college experience they'll always remember. During the 9/11 terrorist attacks, most of today's college students were young children. They've grown up in a world threatened by violent extremists. But hundreds of Wingate students have been challenged to take a stand against intolerance and deliberately choose a path of peace. And the man bringing that message has firsthand experience with that choice. Here's Sharon Foote.
Zak Ibrahim's father is a terrorist and murderer.
It's certainly unusual when an American citizen admits to being the son of the first member of a bin Laden organization to shed blood on American soil.
Nearly 23 years to the day after that attack, Ibrahim spoke at Wingate University. He described his choice not to become like his father.
I wanted to show people that even someone like me who is exposed to this extremism can change their path.
The 32-year-old Ibrahim is a U.S. citizen born in Pittsburgh. His mom is from Pennsylvania. His father, a Muslim, native of Egypt, and naturalized U.S. citizen, turned into a violent radical. Ibrahim was only 7 years old when his father was charged with his first hate crime, the 1990 murder of a controversial Jewish rabbi in New York City. While in prison, his father plotted a 1993 bombing that blew a big hole in the World Trade Center. 1,000 people were injured and 6 died. That attack was not the infamous 9/11, but a precursor to it. As a boy, Ibrahim had been raised to think like his father, but Wingate students were impressed that he chose a different way.
I thought it was neat how he kind of did a 180 from what was expected of him to grow up to do.
It was very eye-opening and, shocking to hear him, change his path.
For Ibrahim, changing his path was more than simply not becoming a terrorist. He changed his entire way of thinking. That about-face took more than 10 years. With his father in prison, Ibrahim began to question rigid teachings about what makes a person good or bad. He questioned, then stopped believing his father's claims of innocence. As he interacted with a wider range of people, Ibrahim questioned whether it's ever right to judge or mistreat others because they are different. He eventually concluded he could not believe what his father believed.
I'd been taught to judge people based on their race, their religion, their sexuality, their gender. And I realized as I got older that these are all very arbitrary measurements that have nothing to do with the person's character.
As a result of his father's crimes, Ibrahim's family endured years of poverty, isolation, bullying, and death threats. He changed his name to avoid any connection to his father, who is in prison for life. Now an atheist, Ibrahim insists extremism is not rooted in any one religion, but whenever a person believes their hatred of others is justified.
The only way I can overcome the challenges of my past, which at times has been crippling, is to help others understand that hatred only produces more hate.
but belief in nonviolence at least provides an opportunity to heal.
Ibrahim was once ashamed of his life story, but now he has written a book and speaks around the world promoting understanding and peace. His message resonated with Wingate students.
We all need to make peace with others, even though we don't really like them, but we need to have faith in them.
I kind of already thought in a similar manner anyway, but now that just ingrained it even more in my mind.
In his book, Ibrahim says choosing peace takes effort, spending time with others who see things differently without arguing about who's right or wrong. He says ongoing dialogue with an open mind is the only way to create mutual respect and understanding, or peace.
He's right. Sharon Foote, thank you very much. Preparing students for that first job, Wingate University's Office of Internships and Career Services hosted a Dress for Success event in March. Speakers included yours truly and Krista Johnson, along with a former Bank of America protocol officer and other community leaders. Students demonstrated what to wear and what not to wear when you go job hunting. Panelists told the audience one of the keys to a successful job interview is to dress for the job you're seeking. In just its second time competing in a nationals competition, Wingate's cheerleading team placed third in the medium co-ed collegiate division at the Cheer Limited Nationals event in Myrtle Beach. The Bulldogs placed just behind NC State's Team Wolf, a perennial powerhouse. Coach Kelly Shepard said the competition was tough, but the experience was valuable, and a third-place trophy just sweetened the deal. The women's swim team just finished up an historic season. Ryan Brown joins us. Quite an outstanding year for the women.
Jeff, Wingate began competition in NCAA Division II back in 1989, and despite many outstanding individual and team accomplishments, Wingate was still looking for their first top 2 finish on the national stage. But after an incredible week in Indianapolis last month, Wingate is looking no more.
Despite a record-setting third-place finish last year in the NCAA meet, it was clear that women's swimming already had their sights on taking the next step with the confidence to accomplish it in 2016.
We felt with another year of hard work and preparation, I believe that we had an opportunity to maybe make a run at it all.
I think that was our motivation to do even better this year, because we knew that it was attainable to achieve such a high ranking at the national level.
We were on the right track because everyone stayed positive, everyone was ready to go, people got really excited. I knew from the beginning that we would accomplish something that we've never done before, and it happened.
It did happen. The women's swim team took that next step and finished as national runner-up, the first ever in Wingate's NCAA history for any sport, a feat the team was well aware of and proud to represent.
In our little circle of swimming, tremendous amount of pride for how hard these student athletes work.
I'm going to remember how exciting it was and how excited everyone was for each other and how genuinely happy.
It didn't click in my mind, and it didn't hit me until a week later when we got home, when people on campus started congratulating me walking down the promenade.
How did the Bulldogs finish runner-up? By achieving a school record 6 individual and relay national championship swims. 7 different Bulldogs were part of a national title swim, including Fish and Arkhipova, who Sanaki said got her fuel for nationals from the conference meet.
When she swam at conference and won her first individual conference championship, the only thing that I said to her when she comes over, I'm getting goose pimples thinking about it, is you're starting to believe. And there's nothing better for a coach than when his athletes start to believe.
After winning 200 backstroke at conference, beating Caroline, it just switched in my mind, and I actually realized that it's possible, and I just went for it. It was crazy.
College athletics have become a year-round show, and swimming is no different. Fish will graduate in May, but Sanaki, Arkhipova, and the rest of the Bulldogs already have their attention on 2017.
I want everyone to remember that winning a national championship is hard, but it's totally something that we can do.
The team comes together and everyone decides for themselves that they want to be their best. I think it's possible to repeat this national championship or even get the higher place.
My goal is to have us both back vying for national championships individually and see how close we can get to the ultimate team prize.
Thanks to the record-breaking finish this year, Sanaki was named National Coach of the Year for the second time in his career. And Wingate Swimming now boasts 37 individual national championship swims since 2007.
They're making us proud. Thanks, Ryan. Wingate University rolled out the red carpet for potential students, hosting the annual Wingate Scholars Day in late February. It's a chance to show new students what life as a Wingate Bulldog is like. Audience members, moms and dads, and students heard from President Rhett Brown and attended a series of Q&A sessions. Organizers call this a key event in the admissions process.
The goal is very simple. We pull out all the stops, we have all hands on deck, but the objective is to provide families with the information they need to make the decision to enroll.
Again this year, the university is looking at enrolling another strong class of freshmen and transfer students. And finally here, a story about young people and old works of literature. Dustin Etheridge here now to explain. Dustin?
Jeff, since 1984, Wingate University has partnered with the Charlotte English-speaking Union Branch to host the Shakespeare Competition. And this year, nearly 200 middle and high school students from Mecklenburg and Union counties came here to showcase their talents. And the result? Well, you'll just have to see for yourself.
William Shakespeare, the famous English poet and playwright responsible for nearly 40 plays and over 150 sonnets, known for titles like Romeo and Juliet, Titus Andronicus, Othello, and countless others. His works have transcended time and even the silver screen.
Sonnet 141, and listen up. In faith I do not love thee with mine eyes, for there in thee 1,000 errors note. But 'tis my heart that loves what they despise, who in despite of you is pleased to dote.
But what does old Billy Shakespeare have to do with Wingate?
I am that merry wanderer of the night.
Come, fellow, be thou honest.
And of all Christian souls, I pray God.
You murdering minister.
This, the annual Shakespeare Competition. The event showcases middle and high school students reciting both a 15 to 20 line monologue and sonnet. And while not for the faint of heart, the event is incredibly inclusive.
This isn't just for students who want to be actors. This competition is for students who may not even know what they want to be yet.
That's Dr. Allison Lenhart. She's an assistant professor of English at Wingate. She directs Wingate's honors program, and she's also a Shakespeare buff, serving as the director and MC of the Shakespeare Competition. A former Shakespeare competitor herself, she's full aware of all that goes into this day, and she believes it's more than just memorization and recitation.
And so to actually have these students be able to act out this part and really think about what these words mean is incredibly important, not just for Shakespeare, but for any kind of literature analysis that they're doing, any kind of speeches that they deliver, and how they communicate with other people.
And these students she's talking about, these teenage thespians, they're whittled down from a pool of around 200 to a handful of finalists. And then the honorable mentions and winners are chosen.
Through the tears I shed.
And this year's winners were Diara Meadows, an 8th grader from Collinswood Language Academy.
What says the law then?
And Isabella Phelps, a sophomore at Myers Park High. They both can attest to the amount of time and preparation that go into competing.
The whole monologue I've said about 20 to 30 times in whole, like with the blocking and everything.
Prepare. It's muscle memory. Like any other sport, you practice hitting a baseball, you practice catching it. Once you go on the field, it's just down to your muscle memory and you doing what you know to do.
And while this might seem like just a tournament of talkers to some, Dr. Lenhart emphasizes the true nature of the event.
So it's a great moment for them to be able to appreciate his works, but also appreciate the spirit of competition.
Cry myself awake.
Jeff, this year the first place winners received a collection of Shakespeare's works that were donated by Connie and Durwood Owen. Isabella Phelps, the first place high school winner, well, she's off to New York City to perform in the national competition at the Lincoln Center.
Dustin Etheridge, thank you very much. And that's our show for this time. I'm Jeff Atkinson. Thanks for watching.